And a very warm welcome to you all. It's a great pleasure to be here, to see so many old friends of the jewellery department and faculty and students, colleagues, our invited guest, Dion Chang. So really lovely to be here this morning to what I think is a very exciting and long overdue event. Farida and I have been talking for some time now about how we can bring this event together and really about rethinking the landscape of contemporary jewellery design and practice in South Africa. So I'm going to just say a few words that I've gleaned from discussions with Farida and some of her colleagues. Now, this is not my field. I'm an academic administrator, obviously, and an art historian when I'm not being a dean, and an occasional opera singer, but that's another story. So jewellery is not my field, but it's been a fascinating journey for me in this faculty to be engaging with the various departments and to be engaging with this department in particular, first under the direction of Professor Judy Peter, and more recently with Farida. And just to start understanding some of the complexities of this industry. Also, we've engaged over the years very much with Corolla through the Tutuka Jewellery Awards. And in this way, it's become apparent to me that this is a potentially very exciting, dynamic, and vital contributor to the South African design industry and the South African economy. But some things seem to be holding it back. And Farida and I have spent a lot of time talking about what is the role of an institution like this, and of a department like this, in changing those dynamics and actually helping to create awareness, to create a new kind of consciousness. And essentially this forum, I think that is probably the starting point. So this is a way of starting that conversation. So if we leave here today just having been challenged in our thinking, and just be alert to new possibilities, I think we will have come a long way. Because of course this is just the start of the conversation. But thank you all very much for being here and taking the time. And I trust it's going to be a productive and informative session. So just some notes, and again, my caveat, I'm not a jeweler, so you know these things better than I do. But from what I understand, that it seems that the industry is pretty much in a state of uncertainty in South Africa. This has to do with a number of issues. Some of them are structural. And of course, the decline in the number of registered businesses is one of the key issues. I'm told that it's a statistic of something like from about 3,000 a few years ago to around 800 now. That's a massive decline in the number of registered jewellery companies. And of course, this decline has to do with various things. It has to do with macroeconomic factors. The fact that we are in a persistent state of a recession is, of course, not helping the market for what is seen as luxury goods. It also has to do with another very important, as you know very well, another very important macroeconomic factor, and that is the rise in imports from places like China and India, where jewellery can be manufactured, mass-produced, manufactured in great quantities, and shipped out. And of course, just undercutting the local market entirely, because it's very difficult to compete with the sort of the quality of the stuff that's been brought in and the kind of amounts at which it's been brought in. So in effect, jewelers, that's kind of what you do. Do you continue trying to do what you do, creating the highly crafted, individual, carefully thought out objects and appeal to a very specific niche market, or do you simply capitulate and become something of a retailer and simply purvey the stuff that's coming in? It's a very vexed question, I imagine, for a lot of people, and one that clearly has resulted in a decline of a number of businesses. There's, of course, also a lack of investment. This notion that entrepreneurialism and small businesses are the backbone of any emerging economy is it's a kind of a political platitude. It's something that all politicians at some point, when they're talking about the economy, are going to say. it's not necessarily matched by viable actions. We're not necessarily seeing the kind of investment that it would take to turn these things around. But of course, it's two kinds of investment. On the one hand, it's a financial investment that says, yes, we will make funds available for startup businesses. Yes, we will make funds available for training and incubation, and the development of viable business plans, and support those things. But that on its own isn't enough. There also has to be an investment into the education, not only the education of the individuals who are going to be producing the stuff, but the education of the consumer to understand that there's a big difference between buying sort of off-the-shelf mass-produced stuff and buying stuff that is made by highly trained individuals. So in other words, there isn't that degree of investment. And of course, this has an impact down the line, inevitably, on the small jewellery businesses. The government funding that does exist is mostly being pushed into training, the point I'll come back to presently. But of course, the implementation of that is often problematic and is open to abuse. So, of course, these kinds of initiatives that we do see by the state tend to be rather short-term, they're reactive, they're not systematic or sustainable. And so, in addition, the funding from that was previously directed to jewellery and mining beneficiation is being redirected to other areas or ceasing entirely. And of course, the question here is then that if the bulk of the investment is into training, is going into training what are essentially bench workers in the FET colleges, is that really a strategically appropriate investment in view of what is happening in terms of the whole production landscape? So as we move into the fourth industrial revolution, I'm sure this is something that Dion's going to touch on, as we move into the age of automation, it's no longer the individuals who can produce the highly crafted objects. Those skills are going to become redundant fairly soon, I might argue. And that raises a very important question, is that what are we then training if we're investing all these billions into training people to do jobs that in 10 years' time are going to be done by machines, and in fact are currently often being done by machines. It's not a viable investment. It's a short-term and certainly not a sustainable one. So the question then is, where should that money and how should that money be invested? What are the answers? I don't have them. That's why you're here, to start thinking about it, to start thinking of the answers. But I imagine that part of the answer lies with understanding what the fourth industrial revolution is about and what kind of mindset it requires. So if we're moving from a state of a focus on industry and production to a focus on service and ideas, then clearly that is what we should be teaching. The focus should shift from, without losing sight of, losing touch with the skills and the materials from which these things are made. And Federico will talk later today about the approach that this department is taking in that regard. Without losing sight of those things, without losing touch of those things, to start training students to be thinking creatively, critically, collaboratively. In other words, to start thinking beyond merely the product, and rather through the whole production chain, the whole creative chain that underscores that product. And I think that, of course, the education institutions have a fundamental role to play in this. We can't keep doing things the same way and expecting a different result. It's my favorite maxim. I see my management team start rolling their eyes every time I say it, because I'm constantly challenging them to say, well, what are you doing differently? You're not satisfied with the results, so what are you doing differently? And I think it's never been clearer than in an industry like this at the moment in this country. There are other problems as well. Of course, the problems of transformation. We can't deny that the industry at the moment is still fairly dominated by white males, or at least by white people. Is that a problem? Well, yes and no. It's the same thing with educational institutions. This idea that, educational institutions are under enormous pressure to transform, to bring in greater demographic diversity. And a lot of academics are throwing up their hands and saying, well, there just simply aren't the appropriately skilled people out there. The problem is that the people are there. We just need to effect a kind of shift in how we understand what we require from people when we bring them into institutions. The University of Johannesburg is a very good example in this point. Our staff demographics 10 years ago was about 10% black. We're now sitting at close to 48% black throughout the institution, which is greatly in excess of the number of our peer institutions. And that has come about by a concerted and dedicated and committed strategy of saying that we create the opportunities, we provide the support, and we don't simply sit back and say, well, they don't, there are no people to fill these jobs. If we keep saying that, I mean, when do we stop saying it, if not now? So I think that is a key issue that really has to be addressed in the industry. Because of course there's an increasing number of black graduates. What's happening to these young people? Why are they not rising to the top? Why are they not emerging as the sort of leading new voices in contemporary jewellery? And again, there are a lot of structural issues underneath that, and we need to address them. We need to address the lack of infrastructure, the funding to start up businesses, the funding to support entrepreneurial skills, the incubation hubs, the pre-incubation hubs, etc. I think that the question of transformation goes deeper, however, than merely questions of demographics. It's also questions of how we actually think about the discipline and what it does. And of course, this goes to the very core of curricular change. It's partly structural, it's partly epistemic. And I think that within the jewellery space, it seems to me that we need to be shifting the focus from the bench to design. And it's about this kind of absolute, understand the transformative power of design per se, both from a social and a psychological and a personal point of view, as well as a broader societal point of view. So in other words, that that we need to be training our graduates to be thinking, to be design thinkers, and to not simply be going into industry and accepting, right, well, I'm just going to carry on producing the catalogue, reproducing the canon. These young people should feel empowered to be going out there and saying, no, I'm not going to reproduce the canon. I'm going to produce what I want to produce, what I think, or rather what I insist, what I demand that you see. Because consumers have to be led by industry. I know it's not as simple as that, but there is this constant dance between what industry wants to do and what consumers are willing to buy. But consumers have to be led by industry. They have to be brought in. They have to be shown what the possibilities are. And at some point, we have to take that bold step and say we're not simply going to be reproducing the catalogue. We're actually going to be reinventing the canon. Because if we don't, we're kind of doomed. The Chinese imports are not going to get any more expensive or any fewer. So the question then is that what can we offer that is unique and that is going to make consumers sit up and take notice? So then I think the question then for this forum, I suppose, is around this issue of how do we harness creativity, how do we harness design thinking in its broadest possible sense, both in relation to jewellery design specifically, but also epistemically. In other words, how it constitutes us as individuals within the system. How do we harness that design thinking and creativity towards a kind of jewellery that is differentiated, that is unique, that speaks about our context, that can start appealing to consumers, that can start changing the landscape of the industry. That's not only based on its technical quality, but also on the quality of its design. So, as I said in my opening remarks, I think if this forum can start moving towards it, towards creating this kind of awareness, towards creating consumer and audience awareness, towards increasing the amount of discourse and debate and sharing and so on, I think we'll be well on our way. So this is my challenge to you here today. University of Johannesburg, I think, has demonstrated in the past 10 years that in many respects, impossible is nothing. Whatever challenge has been thrown at this university, we have not only embraced it, we have risen above it, and we've created a model for a way of doing things differently. So my challenge to you as an industry is much the same. Embrace the idea that impossible is nothing, and everything becomes possible. So thank you very much. I wish you well with your deliberations over the course of the day. I hope to be here for most of them. I will have to pop out every now and then to go and do DE things, but I look forward to hearing what you have to say.